So we're back finally in the studio. I'm very happy about that for the first time in
years.
A year. Yeah, we made that joke and it's done. It's over. 2022, baby. You and Kieran, Rob, you guys recorded an episode already this year, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then Kieran got COVID, which is why, if you're wondering why we don't, haven't had a lot of episodes lately, it's because our workers went on strike, by which I mean Kieran. So it's been
purposely
very
getting COVID so that he doesn't have to, hang out with us.
Management, meaning me, I've been driving the forklift around the office, breaking stuff. I poked out Yulia's eye.
Yeah. I'm wearing an eye patch now.
It's been bad.
Yeah. Yulia is in fact wearing an eye patch. It's quite funny. And by funny I mean sick.
I know, it's pretty
and
cool.
It definitely fits into the realm of what we're going to be talking about later, I think, at least. And I'll bring it up, of course. But before we start everything, there was just one thing that I wanted to bring up over the Christmas break because we didn't really talk to each other since then. We've talked amongst ourselves, but not with our lovely audience, you, the listener.
We're not friends. We are. This is solely a work relationship.
Exactly. I live by the Drake song from 2015 called "No New Friends."
Yeah. I only love my bed and my mom. I'm sorry.
Isn't that a Justin Bieber song?
No, it's also a Drake song.
Oh yeah, true. Shit, my brain doesn't work anymore in 2022.
Do you love me? I only love my mom and my mom. And I'm a bed and my mom. I'm sorry. Okay.
I got in a Twitter disagreement with Czech people about the sense that the Czech military made a video of them shooting Santa Claus out of the sky with a Patriot missile. Because
cool.
They felt that Santa Claus is taking away from the true meaning of Christmas, which is that a tiny child gives you your
a tiny
presents.
child. It's supposed to be Jesus, but it's a girl.
Yeah,
with curly blonde hair.
Yeah.
So it's not Jesus.
Wait, in Germany?
Yeah.
It's a split,
right?
so
funny.
It's always a woman.
It's a split, right? Sometimes it's Christkind, sometimes it's
exactly.
Santa.
So there's a split between the north and south of Germany on this one,
right?
Or and so Bavaria and parts of Baden-Württemberg and whatnot believe in the Christkind, and then the north of Germany has Weihnachtsmann, which is whatever the American version would be Santa Claus.
We have the Christkind, but it's a girl.
Yeah,
because my parents are true.
It's
a Christkind true. So
I think it's a legit Catholic Protestant divide thing in Germany.
It's just so funny because for the Weihnachtsmarkt, for the Christmas market, the Christkindl market, they always choose someone to represent the Christkind, and it's always a woman.
Yeah, and last year it was a
woman too. It's not even a child.
Last year it was a person of color.
Yeah, I know.
And the AfD got really mad in Nuremberg.
They were like, "No, the Christkind who was a woman in a dress and curly blonde." Naturally,
the baby Jesus was a curly-haired blonde woman, grown. I swear. Yeah,
it's tradition.
So then this just bringing to the point of the stupidity of all this is that then these Czech weirdos are defending a German tradition.
What's wrong with that?
Again, there is
they're
half of these countries
on Bavaria. That's
exactly.
The problem.
Yeah, half of these countries in Europe, none of them are real. It's all bullshit. Our show is the only truth, the light and reason of, if you will, of Europe.
What you said is more true than you think because that's actually all not real. We put you in a Truman Show situation because I thought to myself, who would be the
Orlando,
easiest?
Florida.
Who would be the easiest to Truman Show? And
Me.
It was Nick.
Yeah,
and so,
by far.
Yeah, definitely.
we I'm in the studio being like, send him arguments with Czech. Send him arguments with Czech posters on Twitter.
Yes.
How quickly can you put a background together on a porn professor, a German porn professor? All right, you got it? All right, send it in.
Something about double anal.
Oh God, yeah, that was that we should treat people who could.
I mean, it is impressive. I'm not gonna lie, but
yeah,
that's
that. We're not gonna
sports. Clips is not
equivalent to double anal penetration.
Watching clips of double anal penetration.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Hey. Welcome to your weekly Corner Späti. It is myself, Nick, joined with Yulia.
Hello.
And Rob.
How the pirates. Sorry.
Yar.
Yeah.
And,
Yar to you too.
Yeah, we're here to answer the age-old question: pirates versus ninjas. No. 2022, baby. We're here. We're back. It's great. This year's already started off as incredibly stupid as you can possibly imagine. And I know that this kind of carries over from last year into this year, I think, a little bit. But we got to talk about our favorite tennis player.
We have never talked about tennis ever on the podcast.
No, this is.
I hate tennis. Actually,
I actually used to be kind of into tennis.
Seriously, are you rich, Rob?
I watched. Yeah. No, I was just a chubby, lonely 12-year-old who watched ESPN all day, and I was like,
okay.
I need Federer. He can't play on clay courts. There's no way he's going to be Nadal.
Yeah,
and I have strong feelings about Novak Djokovic, aka Joker fraud.
Exactly. This is the podcast.
His Mickey Mouse Open tournament titles.
Yeah, this is the podcast Game Set Matchbox 20, where we talk to you about tennis and our favorite band, Matchbox 20. There is for those who have obviously not been paying attention to anything in the world, Australia is doing genocide against one Serbian man, and we are here to take the stand that this is an injustice.
It is.
I didn't know all of his apparently it's well documented, his esoteric healthy, I don't even know what to call it.
Yeah, wearing crystals
in his
antibiotics?
In his autobiography, which I'm sure is, I'm sure it's ghostwritten, whatever. It's like those Players Tribune articles. He talks about like you can manifest positive emotions and negative emotions in water. Like the water will like turn green if you think angry things about it.
Intelligent water.
And he has, I believe, he has the record for most Grand Slam titles. So who am I to disagree?
Yeah,
gotta be right. He's a good athlete.
So who wants to crack this bad boy open? Of what went down.
Take the reign, Rob.
Well, okay, so it's the Australian Open, right?
Yes.
Which is the first of the year in the tennis world.
We remember that there were years before where it was really hard at the Australian Opens, and they had still let the athletes play. So the Australian Opens sound like a place to be.
Weren't there wildfires?
Yeah, there were wildfires. Last year there were wildfires, and they still let everyone play, even though there were people that were collapsing because they couldn't stand the smoke in the air. Yeah, it's a great place. So this year's new scandal of the Australian Open.
I don't know what happened last year. I guess, so there wasn't a vaccine yet, so they did require it. Apparently, one of the announcers at the 2021 Australian Open, mentioned, I don't know, they were doing one of those bullshit, we're all getting through it together. It's great to be back. And now we have a vaccine and things will turn the corner. And the crowd booed.
That's the most Australian shit.
Yeah. Just getting into it.
It's just what's it called?
We need wrestlers to start working in vaccines, pro-vaccine and anti-vaccine bits into their routines.
Oh yeah, I'm surprised that John Cena hasn't. One, his pro-China stance. Two, he would do it all in Chinese. He would do it all in Mandarin.
He could defend China's COVID policy.
Someone met John Cena lately, and I was like, oh, they met? Some rapper.
Oh.
But yeah, I think the Australian Open are the magnifying glass of the Australian society.
Yeah.
And now
or if it's Western society.
Or that.
Yeah. Oh no, Australia is a
magnifying. Australia is a magnifying glass of Western society, and it all boils down into the Australian Open.
Exactly. That is Yulia's thesis for the show in general.
Yes.
If you want to understand just Europe in general, look at this tennis tournament in the beginning of the year in Australia.
Yeah, exactly.
So Novak Djokovic was allowed to perform. I was supposed to say allowed to compete in the Australian Open due to that he produced a positive COVID test before. Before entry into the country, saying that then he had it and he was cleared for it, and he didn't need to get the vaccine because, as Rob alluded, he is a esoteric psychopath who doesn't believe in vaccines.
You're missing a key piece of information, which is under the new regime in Australia.
Oh, true.
Since the Machtagreifung and all Australians lost their freedom. They're requiring. I guess it would be 2G to play all the tennis players to play in their precious tennis tournament.
Yes.
So, so he showed that he had COVID in 2020.
I believe wasn't the first thing that happened was he got a medical exemption.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he got medical exemption from, I believe, the state medical office and the
this guy doesn't need a vaccine?
tennis league, whatever, the FIFA of tennis.
FIFA of tennis.
Saying, he doesn't need a vaccine. Was that first, or was the proof of...
That was first. No, well, so
Why?
I think that they were done
because of his religious
because of his because he's good at tennis. That's what
pretty much. Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that for a second. But so he had to prove regardless.
Kimmich didn't get that.
Well, yeah, because he's.
I mean,
sorry, he's not
knows,
the best in the world. Apparently, they're one of the
knows.
best in the world. No one fucking knows who Joshua Kimmich is.
He's not a Djokovic. Djokovic.
Yeah.
Everyone knows Djokovic controls the strings of the tennis federation.
Yeah.
That's the only reason he wins.
Exactly.
So.
But yeah, so regardless of what the order of what happened was, he proved that he had COVID in December of 2020, and then was given exemption, and then was revoked that exemption by the Australian Interior Ministry, saying that then that he had the option of either staying at the hotel or he could go back. So, and then in true fanfare, he made it pretended that he was being held prisoner, being held captive in a hotel that he is allowed to leave. And yeah, I think everyone's aware of that story. There are two things that I thought were the funniest that it boiled down to is that then he produced a second COVID result, which came out, I believe, the end of December.
Producing them.
Yes. Yeah. He literally in this case went to literally in this case made a fake, produced a
Did he just use a pencil?
No, I guess he had someone within somewhere along the lines of the these things transfer hands, just crossed out negative and put positive on his test. Wow. And
wait, they crossed it out?
They photoshopped it, because if you scan the QR thing, it comes up as it's a negative test result. So then, and the thing that's even funnier is that then on his social media, the very next day after this alleged positive test, he's hanging around children doing
having COVID to the children.
Yeah, having an event for kids in Serbia to the young and upcoming tennis stars.
Oh man!
And so so that
not
just
the smartest, huh?
That was very funny to me because I didn't get all these details. So when he said he was positive, I forget the exact sequence of events, but the comeback to when he said he was positive was you were positive and then you went and did a photo shoot and met all these children. That's so irresponsible of you. But then he was actually negative, which I gotta support. He was like, I wasn't being irresponsible. I got a COVID test. I was just lying to the government. I was not infecting these children.
Yeah, I just want a ball.
Because Australia has a lot of has a relatively healthy street COVID anti-vax movement, anti-corona lockdown movement. Someone did self-immolate on the street last year at some point, which again, I always respect. You got to go the extra mile. If you really believe in this stuff.
Yeah. However, this isn't an Australian podcast. How does this all affect Europe?
True. Excuse me.
And no. I mean Australia.
No, I get. Everyone knows I get carried away talking about Australia.
Australia they're in Eurovision. All right, so they fall under. They are European colony.
Sunny Europe.
However, this doesn't. We're not. The British aspect of this isn't what we're talking about.
I know, but I still want to say it.
I know.
But we have the same problem with the other parts of society. That is, the Balkan minority.
Exactly. So what happens when you take the most insane people in Europe in general, Balkans and Greeks, and you plop them in the middle of the most uninhabitable place on earth? Would it maybe happen that you also get turf wars of anti-vaxxers?
Yes.
So the wildest aspect of all of this Djokovic shit to me was it reopened a thing amongst the anti-vaxxer movement that has been existing the entire time, which has been the hatred of Serb and Croat ultranationalist anti-vaxxers. Unwilling to agree about anything, but then they didn't know where to stand on this because they didn't want to show solidarity with Djokovic, non-Serbian Balkan ultranationalists. Yeah. However, they didn't like the vaccine. And they just turned it into a thing that Australia specifically hates Serbs. And then the thing that gets like the best on top of it is that Bloomberg, then I don't know if it was specifically Bloomberg, but they went and interviewed a bunch of people in Belgrade of like what they think about it. And I'll like it's out there on Twitter somewhere. There's just a guy who just says that Australia is committing genocide against the Serbs.
By what? By
not
putting them in hotels?
No, by letting him just not compete. He was allowed to leave the country the entire time.
I know. So yeah, I know. He's not even like trapped or something.
No.
And then he was staying at this hotel, which was a hotel for people that on the move, or like for
actual refugees who've been in prison there for 10 years. Yeah,
exactly. That have been in this hotel for 10 years. And he was complaining about the horrible conditions.
I
believe that. It's just like, dude, you can go home. Like, there are people that can't go home.
So
they've been in there for 10 years.
Oh yeah, no, it is like Australia. This is the thing that there was the worst thing about all of this is that so it turns into this like So for those who saw, a bunch of Serbian nationalists went to go protest. Australian Serbian nationalists went to go protest in front of the hotel, and it was one of the oddest things because like migrants' rights activists thought that this would be an opportunity for them to get like camera time and to like get exposure, and like that did not happen. Nope. So they were like actually optimistic of like, okay, yeah, we'll like stand in solidarity with Djokovic, even though they probably thought it was like the stupidest shit ever, which it is dumb because he's just a big fucking whiny baby. Yeah. Like, I'm sorry, tennis athletes are like worse than F1 athletes. Like,
no, not the Williams sisters.
Men tennis athletes.
Okay, good. Yeah. Men suck.
What's his name? The Greek guy literally was an anti-vaxxer up until he found out he could just get more money.
Oh, funny.
I forget his last name. Shit, but you know who I'm talking about. Yeah. Who then also started talking shit about Djokovic, which then like, I'm waiting for that Balkan war also to.
I'm geläutert. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's like
we are the Greek side. We are now for the vaccine.
You play tennis like Turk.
Oh my god. Yeah. So yeah.
But yeah, so that was the most like in the end of it being like probably the most incredibly stupid thing to start the year off with, then having these actual activists then just getting sidelined, actually being hopeful for like 1 second of like okay, cool, and then
there had one moment in the news and shit where you actually heard about like where Djokovic was complaining about the conditions in that, and then people were saying like but this is actually like a refugee like incarceration hotel.
Oh yeah, Australia's had one of the like worst records for that type of shit.
That was done.
Yeah, over. Now he's out. Yeah, now we get to.
Now we talk about Serbian nationalists.
Yeah. Dumb tidbit of information to head into the new year with. I thought that'd be a fun thing to.
We should always start the year with looking at what is happening at the Australian Opens. I tell you,
which how will we relive Sarajevo in the 21st century?
Yep.
Here's a little tip for Novak Djokovic, as I call him. He should form a union because the NBA players have no required vaccine because of the players union, including Vice President Kyrie Irving. Worker power, baby.
He also came back during our time away.
He's getting paid to chill at home half the time.
Yeah,
and then
away games,
ball out.
Yeah.
It's really dumb. It's really dumb. Our celebrity avatars of different political opinions. The one like I do think it's kind of who's giving like minute by minute analysis of the Djokovic case was one Glenn Greenwald who did.
I don't follow him first.
No, he's a great follow, but I love following crazy people. It is kind of there's something significant about the fact that like a court overturned the Djokovic ban, like saying you had to let him play, and then someone in the Morrison government, like the interior minister, foreign minister, I don't know, whoever has this power, just like invoke some law they have, and then like
the swag
could kick him out. Which is like
they invoked clause 1984 of the Australian Constitution.
You'd think they'd call it something else, but they're just doing it out in the open. The cruelty's the point. They
no tennis button.
Seems bad that's that they have the power to do that, but hey, just keep cheering or booing Djokovic.
Yeah. The funniest thing of all this though was all the interviews with the people on the ground just being like, oh well, they're I can't do an Australian accent. Fuck, they are doing this to him because he's clearly Serbian, and Australia's racist to Serbs, just like me. I'm a proud Serb. They're taking away my freedom rights.
That is very funny.
Oh, not bad.
Yeah, I had to get into my Serbian ultranationalist Australian character, which is just an Australian guy.
Yeah.
So now on to more pressing matters. This is finally the time that you've all been waiting for.
Mm-hmm.
World War III, baby, at the door. We're here.
The truth about Ukraine.
The truth about
Coming
Ukraine.
Up from two specialists.
Yeah. Two specialists.
That's what I call you guys.
Next on ATA, we follow a young ragtag group of Ukrainian ultranationalists.
Oh my god. Well, that should be easy to find, like a group of.
I'm waiting for that ATA documentary.
If you two have such strong opinions on the Russia-Ukraine conflict, why don't you go start your own militia and hash it out in the battle of ideas? If you're right, then you'll gain followers.
Speaking of, there was like just recently a nice little protest. It was a big ass fucking protest. Honoring our favorite Ukrainian Nazi.
Oh yeah, shit! I forget about that.
What's his name again? Shit, I always forget his name.
Oh, I don't know. I don't give a shit.
Something with P. Come on.
Yeah.
But,
Well, Nazis ain't P. That's for sure.
Yeah. Just to set the mood.
Yeah. So, for those who've been living under a rock, Ukraine, NATO, and Russia are duking it out. Because over the time that we have not been in the studio, Russia's been amassing troops on the Ukrainian border. Why would they do that? Why would Russia put troops right next to Ukraine? First it was 10,000, then it was 20,000, 100,000, 200,000,
200,000.
Yeah. I don't know why Russia would do that.
Stefan Bandera.
Thank you.
Sorry, he sounds really Italian.
Mamma mia. Well, fascism,
Bandera.
Italian ideology.
Okay.
So this all started for those paying attention a few months ago, that then the threat of Russian deployments on the Ukrainian border, which is a massive fucking euphemism for Russia putting troops in its own country.
Yeah, that's true.
And this kind of started taking off, like getting more serious at the beginning of December at the OSCE or OSCE, where all the foreign ministers kind of meet in Sweden, and they're all like,
they hang out,
they chill. And there was kind of a back and forth between Sergei Lavrov and Antony Blinken of this ongoing. What's so funny? Whose name's funnier, Sergei Lavrov or Antony Blinken?
Blinken is funny.
Blinken with just like a fucking
it
H
sounds like
missing.
A Teletubby to me.
Anthony Blinken.
Anthony Baby Blinken.
Baby Blinken.
But yeah, so they had some like exchanges kind of that happened where they were talking smack to one another, if you will, but it wasn't as serious into the sense of what then happens later. Like Lavrov mentions the sense that the NATO is building up their armaments, which is entirely true, and that Russia is legitimately afraid of like missile positions in Poland, Romania, and all these other countries that the West never admits actually exists, which is kind of funny. And then the U.S. is then pointing to the fact that then Ukraine, the threat of then 2014 with, the annexation of Crimea, which we're going to get into, is incredibly weird from at least Russia's perspective, of then feeling that because Russia did this in 2014, that they will do it again. And that they're
what they want to take this time.
Yeah, well, exactly. We don't know, man. So
some islands around.
Yeah, Russia definitely feeling like island boys, and we can't let them. NATO is there to protect the West from only being the only island boys in town. Russia's not allowed to.
Yep.
Putin is an island. Okay.
No, he hangs around in Sochi, which is not an island. Putin's very much
it's pretty warm there too.
Yeah. Russia actually sits on, according to some estimates, like the second or third most island deposits, but foreign companies own and extract all of it, and use it, export the swag to other countries.
Exactly, yeah.
Island boys through and through.
Yeah, and so NATO is there, I think, rightfully, to prevent Russia from becoming true island boys.
Exactly. Just imagine the power.
Yeah. So
the power of Putin with white dreadlocks.
Damn,
and a face tattoo.
Yeah. Oh god, that'd be fucking sick, actually.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so fast forward to then where we kind of are now is that then this last week, a bunch of other smaller things have happened, but the thing that then really has kind of become the biggest news of late is that NATO has been having bilateral discussions with Russia, but only NATO. There have not been.
There has been a U.S. Russia summit
in Switzerland as well.
Yeah,
you're right. So there's been the NATO
Everyone's
summit.
Hanging out in Switzerland right now.
Yeah.
Even Iran, but they're talking about nuclear stuff.
Yeah. So the U.S. There's a bilateral U.S. and Russia meeting about about Ukraine, and then there was a NATO Russia meeting about Ukraine, with the NATO continuously having the hilarious thing of that then the United States and NATO will not meet to talk about Ukraine without Ukraine
but they're doing it constantly, and they also say we will not talk about Europe without Europe.
Yeah,
which then we will not talk about NATO without NATO. We will not talk about Ukraine without Ukraine. He said that in one in his whole fucking press statement.
Yeah,
they said that, and they did all of that.
Who the U.S.'s deputy
deputy state
Department of State
person. Ned Price.
What's her name again? Sherman or something like that?
Oh, you mean so Ned Price said it and was quoting Sherman, who is leading the talks with Russia, actually.
Yeah, so then the thing that then's really funny about then all of this is that because remember, as Yulia said, we're not going to talk about European things without Europe. We're not going to talk about Ukraine things without Ukraine. Yeah. What just ended up happening, at least this last week, is that then Russia and NATO would meet, and then Jens Stoltenberg would go to then a different location and then meet with Josep Borrell and then the European defense ministers and just tell them what he spoke with. Yeah.
So Russia said this. It's kind of
So the thing that then gets even funnier about this is that then while I do not think that we're on the brink of World War III, is that then certain people within Europe have been getting kind of pissy, particularly our own favorite, Jupiterian God Emperor King. Emmanuel Macron wanted Europe to go into the negotiations first. Went to Ursula von der Leyen kind of saying hey, Europe should be leading these talks. Geographically speaking, we are here. And she agreed, but then has not followed up on that clearly because I don't think there's a date set for a Europe-Russia talk on this matter. So it has once again been NATO and the United States doing all the talking, claiming, which is the funny thing is that for anyone who then has stupidly had to listen to any of these press conferences like Yulia and myself, of that NATO, any NATO member does this really funny thing of Russia's being aggressive, we're NATO's not interfering, this and that and that. By the way, we're also sending weapon shipments to, they'll just say it the next line.
It is pretty interesting because, first of all, it is interesting because it's made now it's a US-Russia thing again, which is funny, which is kind of Cold War rhetoric going on and stuff, which has not, the US has not much to do actually with Ukraine in that moment, but of course they do because it's a geopolitical.
Where are my boys and get Stinger missiles from? All right,
yeah, I know.
I got some thirsty neo-Nazis here. All right.
So what? Shit, no, I forgot what I wanted to say. Yeah, first of all, the US keeps repeating that, but the US also says we want, so what they want from Russia, Yasha, Russia.
Fucking Yasha Monk over here ruining bilateral talks.
So they want Yasha
to speak on behalf of Tony Blair.
Yes. No, they want Russia
1 million
to move.
Dead Russians on it now. On my desk by Monday.
By Monday. They want Russia to move the deployed troops from their in their own country. The troops are inside their own country. So what actually is an interesting question is what kind of demand is that? Okay, you have troops, inside you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's they're still inside Russia.
Just move back.
They are at the border, and then Ned Price said, we want them to return to their barracks.
which is probably also on the border. Yeah, that's like U.S. troops need to go back to their nearest base, which is probably just like 20 miles away in like Poland or something like that.
Yeah, not saying that, of course, it isn't like a provoking action what Russia is doing. They're definitely like deploying. The deployment
of course. Yeah, there are Russian troops on the border.
Yeah,
that is
exactly.
like we're not saying that this is like made up. Like the amount, the amount of the number that's being thrown out is anywhere between 10,000 to 200,000. I'm gonna make a rough estimate, probably put it somewhere in the middle of there. I would assume that then
it's like a demo in Berlin.
Exactly.
Organizers said 200,000 people.
Police said 3,000.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah. 100,000. Then how many is Russia then saying is on their border? Then normally we would go shit.
Keep going.
I don't know. Doesn't matter. We have 1 million Russian troops on the border.
Yep.
No. But. Yeah, so I mean, the reality of it is that, like, there are Russian troops stationed on the Russia-Ukraine border.
There's also NATO troops stationed at the at the Latvian border, at the anywhere where you can.
That's one of the funniest. I only interact with this from memes I see sometimes online, but they're like, "Oh, you say Russia's surrounded," and then they show like a map of Russia, and they're like, "There are only troops at this little part of the Russian border."
Yeah,
like why? Like Russia can't claim it's being surrounded by NATO. When it's like,
I mean, it really.
They don't need to cover the whole border.
No. There are still troops there, but but it's also interesting because the whole thing is also like the thing that is also kind of like one of the conflict points here is Russia. Again, I think it has been since NATO was founded, like up for discussion thing. It's the open door policy of NATO.
Yes.
Saying, okay, whoever wants to join and like fulfills the requirements, you can wear our jersey. I don't know, like be part of the team.
It's like when rappers give a chain.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's like you can be part of like Brick Squad.
Yep.
Yeah. So and Russia actually claims that in the agreement that they had for Russia also to like dissolve like the Warsaw Pact was that NATO would not try to invite Eastern European countries that are bordering to Russia.
And this is exactly proven in 2014 after that, when then Ukraine's not allowed to join NATO because all of this stuff was when like
they really wanted to.
Well, they partially did and they partially didn't. This is the thing that's like so confusing about it is because there was a pro-European faction that then won out of the whole, Euromaidan thing. The fact that they get invaded afterwards by Russia. That they get, I guess invaded is maybe the wrong word if you're a pro-Russia person, but So Russia then takes Crimea in one of the weirdest claims I've ever heard for why it's okay, because they just didn't recognize the new government because Russia claims that
Ukraine had a revolution. All the treaties we signed were not with this Ukraine, which is very interesting because this is based on the Budapest Memorandum, where after
of 97, right, or something like that.
Yeah, 94 to 97, I think, were the like talks about it because it's a big one. So it was actually the US, the Brits. Oh no, were the Brits? Russia, and someone else.
Probably France or something like that. Why not?
Probably France. It was about nuclear weapons.
Exactly.
So, and it was about because through the fall of the Soviet Union, some random countries ended up with nuclear weapons, like Kazakhstan, Belarus, and the Ukraine.
Exactly.
So
nothing but just kings.
In the Budapest Memorandum, they agreed on getting rid of those nuclear weapons in those countries, while honoring the territorial integrity of the borders of these countries, which means Ukraine stays Ukraine, Kazakhstan, Belarus stays Belarus, no Russia there.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the agreement.
No Russian, exactly. That's what
the whole deal was no Russian. So that was the Budapest Memorandum.
And so then in 2014, Russia then claims that because of a It's one of the funniest, but yet also like legally true arguments that they didn't re-sign they didn't re-sign an agreement with the new Ukrainian government.
Yeah,
it's like weirdly true and stupid.
I support it in the same way I support the Reichsbürger. I love legal, absurd legal arguments.
Russia also says since Europe came with sanctions against Yanukovych, who was the president, the president during that time of the Ukrainian Maidan revolution. The sanctions that were imposed by Europe were actually a violation of the Budapest Memorandum, according to Russia, because it said, "Oh well, actually, like you are now acknowledging new state, which is not the old state, so we can also do the same." And saying like we never had a treaty with this Ukraine.
Yeah,
never talked to
this
these
is the thing
guys.
this is the shit that's so fucking funny about the like weird Europhile like Ukraine thing is that like. Yeah, a few years ago, the European Union was trying to bar Ukraine from like literally anything. European Union entry, economic sanctions on the country because of their closeness to Russia. Yeah. And then magically overnight that obviously changes because of what, I mean, I think it's pretty clear now that it was like an op of whatever the fucking Euromaidan thing was. But
they hate when you say Euromaidan.
I don't give a
Because now
shit.
they're so nationalist that they don't care about Europe anymore.
You know what? You know what?
Because Europe left them,
Exactly.
let them bleed.
I have a question. So then does Russia still claim like? They can keep using the same logic, right? Like because there are no new treaties and stuff.
No, this just it was just
treaties.
specifically
Minsk 1 and 2.
Minsk 1 and 2 came after Europe.
After
So
Maidan.
they can't take any more.
They didn't want
more
to.
territory.
So
Okay.
the thing of it with
So
Crimea,
then what's the fear now in 2021, 2022?
they could. I mean, they did it once. The thing about Crimea is that then
They have to have another excuse, a new revolutionary government. in Ukraine.
Crimea had
Exactly.
elections.
Well, the thing about Crimea that's so like just weird historically is that then it never. I mean, Crimea and Odessa and all these different places were like never really
Odessa is Greek.
ethnically. Yeah, they were all.
I would
like,
die on that hill. Odessa is Greek.
The idea then of like this is the thing that's really funny of like Western logic and compared to then the logic of then like the socialist countries that then were there before that is that there is no like true national identity of any of these places. Odessa,
Bring the Tartars back to Crimea.
yeah, exactly. Or like Crimea now in modern day was more Russian ethnically than it was Ukrainian, and the people who are on Crimea overwhelmingly were like, yeah, we don't give a shit. We want the Russians here because they like make us feel more, you know, Russian. And then Putin literally used that in the sense of the reason to go into Crimea because the West's understanding of like, and the Balkans is the perfect example of this, of like the whole Kosovo Serbia thing, this and that and that, because the sense of like the West can only exist on an ethnic, like an ethno-nationalist view of the nation state, which is fucking stupid. Like the idea then of like one of the best things of the Soviet Union was this sense of that you would
in this together.
yeah, so you would be like Azerbaijani, but you would exist within like the Soviet Union, or you'd be Ukrainian and you would like exist.
Now it's a lot of fucking like, what's it called?
There was still racism in the Soviet Union, not to like say there wasn't.
But like
but
at the fall of the Soviet Union, there was a lot of killing going on between Azerbaijanis and Armenians and everyone kind of like hanging out in the same country.
Yeah, because the thing that then like fueled these things of like, well, you have an independent country again. You know what would really be fucking sick is if you also then re-inject that ethno-nationalism. And so Ukraine has been one of the best examples of this because I mean they've like. There's been a massive history of just like rampant neo-Nazism or just Nazism in that country, and the same thing in the Baltics as well.
Yeah, it's kind of like Ukraine and Latvia kind of have like similarities, right? Both bordering Russia and both having a strong like nationalistic like movement
and just honoring Nazis
with paramilitary groups, and we should not forget that. Not only like the guys in Donetsk and Luhansk paramilitary Russian groups. You also have the same on the Ukraine side. It's not only the Ukrainian army that is It's like, yeah.
Well, I mean, we all know Azov Battalion, of
Yeah,
course,
exactly,
because
exactly.
they're not part of the Ukrainian military.
Yeah.
They are
all those hooligans joining the fights and now only fighting foreign football fans when they come to the country because they fought together against Russia. They can't fight against each other anymore. So now that's why they
together.
Yeah, that's why they beat up people in Portugal just like recently at the UEFA thing and shit like that. So
the funniest thing of this as well is that I'm not going to read the article, but we will link it in the description.
But maybe you want to.
Yeah, maybe you're a freak. So the New York Times did a whole little expose, if you will, on how the U.S. has been funding these paramilitary organizations without just mentioning who they are. Just like they just care about being Ukrainian. These Ukrainian nationals, no nationalists, and how they work in like in coordination with the Ukrainian military, but they're not a part of it. This and that, and the U.S. has been helping them. And then fans of the show know that these are all pretty much neo-Nazi groups, and people who tell you that they aren't are typically wrong. But the funniest thing is at the end of it just starts justifying with being like, oh, they also do it in Latvia. And the funniest is that
surprise.
If you could maybe have found a worse example of this, I don't think it would be possible because the Latvian ones are explicitly Nazis. Yeah. There's also examples in Serbia of like there is no like, oh, there are they are all just Nazis. There is not.
This man is a Latvian. He's your friend. He doesn't fight for your freedom. He fights for a freedom that you should think is good. Because you can kind of squint and assume the same for yourself. Doesn't roll off the tongue like the World War II stuff.
Yeah. So it really
freedom
is.
of the nation.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is just like, to me at least, that's like the funniest thing of how like the American like liberal psyche of, because it really is like a thing of just like liberal elites, particularly this being the Biden's administration's like last hurrah for reclaiming foreign policy, which is the topic which is of discussion
after that decline in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And this is something, right?
This is the topic of discussion that I actually wanted to end on because I think it's more of a
I say want to talk about Minsk. Minsk 1 and 2, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, we can get to that then later. Is that then there is like, not Minsk, we can get to the ending thing I wanted to talk about later. Yeah. No. Minsk, of course, yeah. The thing is that then it's very clear within like liberal media, within, the United States, Germany as well, to a lesser degree, some other European countries, that it is just a liberal elite obsession with then a reclaiming of like, oh my God, Biden's back, baby, we're here, and you're just getting these like batshit op-eds again that then are just like
International. Sorry.
Yeah, Biden's back, baby.
Fuck Berlin Burger International.
Exactly.
Biden's back, baby, international.
That's the real Build Back Better.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay.
But yeah. So there's this massive consensus around that Biden is the post-Trump, and in this he's just being a war hawk, but he's like just the funniest thing about it too is it's like the most technocratic bullshit because Biden's not actually been at any of these things. Biden can't like build a sentence himself without clearly struggling. And it's just so it's the New York Times Financial Times then posted a thing of that. I don't know if it was in them. I mean they broke the news, but I don't know but the US is now claiming that then Russia is doing cyber attacks against Ukraine, and like they're just like pulling any dumb shit out of their hat that then will be like the like WMD thing from 2003. Like when the general American public and the general European public like don't fucking give a shit, like either don't give a shit about NATO unless you're in the Baltics, and don't want a fucking war with one of the largest military superpowers in the world.
You don't want to, no.
So so what's gonna happen? Like, if it seems like Ukraine can't join any of the EU, NATO, like these Western institutions, because that's like I don't know, it would disrupt the balance of power. But they can keep sending the US or whoever can keep sending weapons and funding to paramilitary groups. I met like Russian or like pro-Russia paramilitary groups can also keep getting their weapons and whatever. And so like, but that buildup it seems like it will never be enough to actually like change the balance to like make you put Ukraine in one camp or the other. So it's just like a ratchet that only goes in one direction, right? Like how else is it supposed to resolve itself?
Yeah, because I mean, I like theoretically. I like realistically don't see Ukraine joining NATO. It would be. I mean, Russia would like.
What would be the trigger?
Provocation, like a big one.
Russia would see that then as like
Ukraine. They can't do anything. Because they also. That's also interesting because Nord Stream 2 is also a big thing right now.
Exactly. I wanted to get to that a little bit later, but perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it's fine.
I mean, Ukraine here is also like a playboy again. They're like, we want to keep strengthening Ukraine because it is a like gas provider country or whatever. Yeah. And the Nord Stream 2 discussion. Okay, Nord Stream 2 is done, but it's not operative yet because it still has to go through
this fully armed and operational.
Yeah, not operational.
Gas pipeline. Just gas costs just start sinking.
Yeah, it's not fully operational. Unlike the Death Star.
Yeah, it's the same problem the Death Star had. They weren't allowed to, like the European Union wouldn't allow the
they have to go through the network agency in the network for a certification process, of course. No, but also well, they said now that it could be like the US said it actually, which is interesting because this is a German-Russia thing, but that Nord Stream 2 could now be a leverage for like in the when it comes to imposing sanctions against Russia if Russia doesn't react the way that they want, if they don't get their troops away from that border.
Exactly. And this was one of the last things that Merkel did before she left office was guaranteed that Germany wouldn't have to pay attention to sanctions on Nord Stream 2 specifically.
Yeah.
But that's probably going to get overturned because, the new government's like really hawkish on Russia, except for like Scholz is like probably maybe a little bit more level-headed. Exactly. Because women don't know shit about Russia.
Especially not that Baerbock. No, but Baerbock like what?
I hate when girls be talking about Russia. Pissing me off.
Hey. No, but Baerbock was really clear, like even during campaigning, that her stance on Russia is very. She loves NATO.
Yeah.
She really loves NATO.
Yeah, Annalena Baerbock really gave me like
really loves NATO.
Dave Chappelle Black Bush vibes.
Yeah.
When talking about Russia and China.
Oh my god. Yeah. So yeah, that's I guess why Scholz said, "No, you can't do this." Because she probably she just met with Blinken as far as she went to the US.
Yeah,
they talked.
She met with Nancy Pelosi too.
Oh yeah,
it's a fucking cursed photo.
I saw that photo.
Oh god, yeah.
But now they said and they said Ned Price said that I think
Ned Price
said that they talked to you. The US always talks to everyone, but also actually doesn't.
Talk for you.
Exactly, talks for Europe. Saying like, European leaders, they agree. Like some of them agree on this, that Nord Stream 2 should be leveraged. I don't think the German government agrees on that.
The German government right now probably does. The old one
right
didn't.
now, yeah.
Sorry, I just have the dumbest thing go through my head.
They did because they said they said sanctions can be. They didn't make it clear. They said sanctions can be sectoral, and it could also affect the energy sector.
Yeah.
Very vague, but very much in the pointing into the direction of making Nord Stream 2 actually a leverage.
Yeah.
Wait, so catch me up here. So there have been sanctions against Russia for whatever reason. And now Russia has an extra little, what's the right feather in its cap?
That there's a massive energy crisis.
And so then they're like, no, but then we still want that. Like, so that's a bit of balance shifted towards Russia. So the West is looking for any reason to just add that to their portfolio of possible sanctions.
Yeah. And the thing that's the funniest of it is that then if they actually if Western European countries cared about like green energy, they obviously would like reinvest massively into their things to then make themselves more energy independent. But since that's literally no option that any European country is taking right now, Russia holds a lot of cards in their hand, being one of the largest gas suppliers to Europe.
The European Union just declared that as a transitional energy lieferant, gas should be considered as
I mean,
since all the coal mines and all the Kohlekraftwerke are supposed to
to be very fair, that is
down.
I mean, they're not investing in the proper things, so unfortunately they are literally creating their own fucking feedback loop of this bullshit because they won't heavily invest in truly net zero fuels. So okay, is gas better than coal? Sure. Fuck, I don't.
Still
not the best. But you've created this fucking monster because you wouldn't invest 30 years ago into other shit, and then now the question between gas and nuclear and shit like that, which is I agree now at this point are transitional and should probably be considered, but they're not the fucking end game.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're treating them as such is fucking stupid. Yeah. So it's there is if you're treating environmental issues as a national security issue, which they are, and then also in terms of national sovereignty, then you'd be a fucking idiot not to as a liberal, you'd be an idiot not to heavily reinvest into your own or at least European wide or whatever the fuck it is, it doesn't fucking matter what it is, but at the end of the day,
I want the whole fucking North Sea full of windräder.
Oh my god, that Julia's just creating hell for conservatives. They're so ugly. But so you mentioned Minsk 1 and Minsk 2.
Yeah, Minsk 1 and Minsk 2, which is funny because Minsk 2 only exists because
Minsk 1 got made.
Minsk 1, they met, they agreed on these things, but nobody did anything. So they had to do Minsk 2, where they actually met with other foreign leaders like Germany and France and all of them, hanging out and Putin and shit, saying, no, we really got to implement what we wrote in Minsk 1. So that's actually what Minsk 2 is. It's just the talking about the implementation of what was agreed in Minsk 1. So the thing is that in both Minsk treaties, Russia is not a war party in the treaties because it's about Luhansk and Donetsk.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not about Crimea as far as I know. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's definitely about Donetsk and Luhansk, and Russia is not the paramilitary groups that are fighting there. Of course, they're
they fund them,
They fund them with weapons and shit like that. But Russia is not mentioned as a war party. So Ukraine and the Russian paramilitary groups. That's why it was signed by the leaders of the Russian paramilitary groups, which is Igor whatever.
Yeah, but of the People's Republic of Donetsk, whatever the fuck it's called or some shit.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's one of the wildest unrecognized nations.
It is. Well, the funny thing is, since there are war parties in the Minsk treaty, Russia kind of sees them as being recognized.
Yeah,
because they're in the treaty. So Russia says, you kind of recognize them when you did that. So the interesting thing here is why people saying Russia is violating Minsk 2 is because fighting was still going on, just after the ceasefire agreement in the Minsk treaty. The paramilitary groups started a campaign against one of the Ukrainian cities at the border. So and Ukraine was we can't kind of take our missiles and our troops away if they are still fighting. So that was so it didn't do anything basically. So the fight here, the conflict here is that Ukraine only wants to implement Minsk if the troops and the paramilitary groups stop fighting. They want to start with the military side of it. Russia and the paramilitary groups say, now we want, especially Russia, we want the diplomatic shit being dealt with first. So we want elections in Donetsk and Luhansk. And you can do that while there are still troops. I don't care. Just do the diplomatic shit first. And so they can't really agree on that.
And they called on who they need to, which is the diplomats.
So they said, we want elections for these, and we want them to be recognized as autonomous regions. That is what Russia wants. That is what the paramilitary groups want. Ukraine wants to stop the fighting first, and every troop sachet away. I don't know.
War is just a big RuPaul's Drag Race.
Ukraine wants to turn the lights on in the club.
Exactly. So both see think that the other party was violating the treaty. Russia was maybe the deployment of the troops at the border, and I mean they are not part as a conflict partner, as a war partner in this treaty. Yeah, and Ukraine with not allowing the elections or
I really appreciate Russia for being ultra German vibes on these, of just like through legality getting out of any responsibility of it. Because I think it's just like the thing of being like clear is that like while what NATO does is fucking stupid and they are definitely like, you know, saber rattling a lot of the time. Yeah, Russia's obsession with this is also like incredibly dumb at the end of the day to me. And it is like so much, I wouldn't, calling it like imperialist or expansionary is just like, I think dumb, like faux lefty shit that then doesn't even need to be like entertained at the end of the day, because it's just like, they are preserving economic interests. They're like, is Russia expansionary is a question that I think that's just like silly. Like Russia's had a really stupid history of the last 30 years since being an independent, you know, federation. But at the same time, too, it all just comes down to the sense of that then, like, at the end, it's all comes, like, the breakup of the Soviet Union and this obsession of an ethno-national state that then that the West is, like, implemented deeply into, like, the psyche of all these people of, like, what it means to be a liberal democracy ends up being just, like, genocidal bullshit at the end of the day. You know, which is like Russia's also bought into this too, in their like construction of a new Russia, you know, and like
bigger Russia, better Russia.
But kind of the discussion that I wanted to end with on this was what I think is the most interesting thing, because I mentioned earlier that then people like Macron kind of pissed, and how there is like a push currently from the former, remember Trump very hands off on the foreign policy thing, unless it was like an airstrike just to, you know, kill our hero Qasem Soleimani. But the Biden administration's really been trying, at least maybe not domestically, to do anything, because we've seen that they've somehow managed to make things worse in the United States, but also making things worse by then getting the U.S. back into a position of where they were previously, before Trump,
previously on
NATO, on U.S. foreign policy. And you have, I mean, like the like Afghanistan thing was kind of a surprise. I mean, Biden went through with that because that was an agreement that Trump had already had done. But there is like this like rehabilitation of like the United States as a global superpower under Biden
as well.
That's like not really working out all that well, and I don't think
that's China as well right now.
And I don't think it's so much in the sense that it's like, oh, because Biden's like a bad leader or whatever, or because, you know, Trump was so destructive to the U.S. You know, influence in the world and blah 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 blah. I think it's just like the natural progression of things, of that then the ability of countries to work with the United States has been so well known, of that when you end up like, NATO's a funny one of like, oh, you can join and just like do what you want, king, queen, like we don't ask anything of you, by the way, like if
you can invade South Syria.
It's like
northern Syria, northern.
But it's just like, yo, bro. But there's really weird things of like, with things that nations can get away with in NATO and things that then nations can't. So like some players like France and Turkey have been very adamant of the sense of like, yeah, we'll just continue our war in Mali, whatever. We've been there for like 20 years, which has been one of the funniest things of recent, that then like the police in Mali just keep arresting like mercenaries, like French mercenaries. And like France's war there is like low key kind of illegal as well, or like, you know, Turkey's invasion of northern Syria as well. And we've just kind of been seeing these like fault lines of like, while NATO is positioning itself currently right now of like, we're the big man in town, we are standing up to Russia. It's like not crumbling, because NATO can always exist. It's always like, it's flexible enough to do whatever it wants. But there is kind of a question, I think, of like a bunch of Europhiles like Macron, who are probably going to end up pushing for some other form of like European defense or like military measures, because a lot of European countries are going to get annoyed with the fact of like NATO talking for all of them.
They already talked about that, actually. They had this meeting of like the European Security Council and talked about a compass for European security, and it also like involved like some troops, maybe, like talking about that. And then people were like, how is this kind of like a counteract to NATO? And then we were like, no, this is like a complementary thing to NATO, because we will still work with NATO and shit like that. So like,
so then does the EU have to join NATO then?
Oh, that's a good question.
I mean, yeah, they would. You know?
Damn.
And I mean, it's the thing too of this is like, I mean, I think that, I mean, maybe we're biased because we're leftists, but it's like US global influence is like drastically like, you know, it's not where it was 10 years ago or so. Yeah. And even the sense of like after Afghanistan, like how quick did that story just like disappear from, you know, from media of like, oh my God, the US left, the you know, Afghani women, like what are they gonna, it's like, like that, what, 2 weeks later, like it's just been kind of accepted that the Taliban is the government there, and that this is obviously, you know, the U.S. fucked up royally with their foreign policy for 20 years. Europe was stupid enough to get involved.
Every European, every tiny Luxembourg was there.
And like the fact that like Germany had a march for their troops that came back is one of the just saddest things ever. It's just pathetic. Of like no country came back from Afghanistan being like, oh my God, good job. It's like,
good job, guys.
Yeah, I think the resion that then half the time they wanted to stay there so they don't have to fucking like just accept the embarrassment of being just like losing, just taking L after L
NATO
after L.
Lost.
Yeah. But I mean, Syria is another example too. Like they didn't overthrow Bashar al-Assad. You know, he's still, you know, the line of Syria will not be taken down.
Never.
And now there's like the German government's doing a really weird thing of like putting people who are in Germany on trial for crimes that they committed in Syria as like crimes against humanity or like war crimes and this and that and that. So it's like there's really no way that like they'll take any small victory that they can, but the reality of it is that then like this Western dominance of the world, regardless if they agree with it or not, can't exist in this regard of what it used to be. Like you can't, I mean, the U.S. has tried to overthrow a few governments lately. It hasn't really been all that successful now, has it? Honduras is probably like the last one, you know? The CIA just can't pull a coup together anymore. Like, you know?
Chile has a lefty leader again.
Yeah.
Damn. That Henry Kissinger was able to live through this, seeing this again.
Yeah, I mean, if he's not dead, at least he got to see that.
I'm glad. That's the only reason why he should still be alive, is to see that Chile is like...
Bolivia got couped, of course. How could I forget it?
Bolivia
but then immediately they
elected
for the...
Yeah,
so,
there you go, you fuckers.
Yeah, I mean, like it's not even to say the sense of like that it's like leftism is like there is a massive strain of fascism obviously throughout
Venezuela as well.
Yeah, they'll never get Maduro, not on my watch. But it's just like genuinely just kind of like pathetic at this point to see how like the United States, particularly the United States, goes about their foreign policy. Where I'm just like wondering how much longer is it that the European countries themselves, and like it only matters of European countries because they're the only ones who are members of NATO, are gonna like the only way that they can like continuously end up in these positions of continuously existing is when you have governments that then are like willing to work with them. So you have like Erdogan's government doesn't really give a shit about being part of NATO. Like they do and they don't, but it's like they're always like feuding with Greece every 2 seconds. But like Mitsotaki's government fucking loves NATO, you know? And it's like, you know, how much longer till like Viktor Orban loves NATO, you know? I mean, like the right also does not like NATO. Like the nationalist right, you know? Like there is a lot of skepticism. I mean, amongst like the Trump right people, like right wingers in the United States, they fucking hate NATO. They're not gonna like dissolve it themselves. Trump probably could have if he like tried hard enough. But like Trump didn't like NATO because he said that then like countries didn't put their fair share in it, and he wasn't wrong about it, you know? Like.
I mean, I'm fine with not people putting more money into NATO.
Yeah, like I mean, it's one of the funniest things.
Because Germany wants to do that now.
Because Trump told them to. Like that was the thing. Remember, German libs were like, "Oh yeah, Trump will never boss us around." Blah 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 blah. And then one of the very first things when AKK was still the defense minister. We're gonna meet our 2% requirement.
We're gonna pay up.
But I mean, it sounds like what you're saying is going back to whatever the balance of power that's has Ukraine in this, like increasingly violent or just like unsettling situation, despite the U.S. Losing, let's say, losing some swag. Europe, or at least France and Germany in some ways, they can pick up the slack.
Yeah, but it would turn into some, like, would it still be NATO? Would it then be like some like European army thing?
It's got the same enemies, so it can just call whatever you want.
But I guess that's why they're talking now.
Whether it's an EU army or whatever.
Bigger baller right now.
I got enemies, got a lot.
And there's a spot, but like that's why nothing would change, because they can pick up the slack. I don't know, maybe they don't have the the army to back it up like the U.S. does. I don't know.
Well, that's the thing too. Is that then do you rearm Germany? Does Europe let Germany? Because I remember, like, German, while they have a military, have a pretty small military in comparison to like how big the nation is, and they don't get it. Like, remember, we had the discussion with I believe when Ted was on the episode, with like the Greens, of how that was the first example of Germany, sending troops overseas. Now Germany is sending troops to, like, Germany does their stuff like really like low key. Like, they're sending 500 troops back to Iraq now to help with the government and to fight ISIS, which apparently that's still a thing. But like Mali has a few German troops, like, but German troops like weirdly exist on the battlefield for like consulting, which is the most German thing.
I think that they could manufacture that consent pretty easily, both within Germany. Just tell like we have to protect Ukraine, so old men can continue to take creep shots of baddies on Ukrainian beaches. Done. Check. Outside, I don't know. Fucking they're gonna let Germany do what it wants.
I mean, I think actually, because like, okay, UK is gone, so there's no one.
About time.
So France and Germany, they're like they like each other. I don't know about Scholz and Macron now, but Macron might be gone soon. But like France and Germany, they've been ruling the whole fucking EU shit for years now. So like, actually, the one that was like Mitterrand, who was against unification of Germany, saying like, "Oh, I like Germany so much, I want two of them."
Right.
That was cool. I gotta say that was a cool quote. And so France was one of the most like the biggest opponents of rearming Germany and giving Germany an army. And,
smart.
Yeah, and now it looks like
I want 16 Germanys. Every Bundesstaat is just now its own country.
Yes.
Yeah, I live
from
in
the great country of North Rhine-Westphalia.
Yes. I live in the Oblast of Brandenburg. Yeah, I mean,
I don't know, but as I'm saying,
we don't have that. We we don't have the answers.
Exactly, but what I'm saying, you can see that there are developments in the EU right now, where actually it is considered to have like joint troops or something, like an EU army, kind of an EU security corps force.
Yeah,
I don't know. Because like, as I said, when they had this like security defense minister meeting and EU Security Council shit, they were talking about this company. They were talking about maybe thinking about like troops or like, giving Europe the power to defend themselves.
All right, here's a question for the audience. Exactly. All right, here's the question for the audience. What dumb war would the EU army get into first? I'm going to go out and say probably some like conflict you've never heard of in like sub-Saharan Africa.
Yes.
Of just then like you randomly start hearing a lot about like, damn, like the Tigrays, they're bad dudes. They could, they could attack Europe within 4 days.
I swear. Yeah. No, but yeah, because right now, like, the EU is kind of like, I wouldn't say scared, maybe scared, like worried about their security because of the situation at the Polish-Belarusian border, the Ukraine situation. I don't know, like they make something up, they find something, like what is like endangering the security and unity of Europe.
One more question then. how would the EU army, because like NATO has the best like formula for this, of that then your own sovereign nation's military is then a part of it, you know? So you can exist with like, you can do your own military operations. NATO, you can like, you don't have to ask NATO for your help. You can go and, you know, fucking go buck wild in Mali. If Germany wants to help you out, you know, cool.
With there's concessions.
Yeah. If not, also cool. We'll still go do it. You know, France, buck wild. Turkey, buck wild. You know, I don't know what other countries have as massive of military operations going on right now, but yeah, maybe like Poland has troops in like, you know, Thailand for all I know. I don't fucking know.
That would
Like
be interesting.
But yeah, Germany sending troops to Portugal, whatever, this and that and that. Yeah, for like Corona help.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
But no, but it was done in the sense so that then the German military can exist within their own sense of then offering the things that they want. An EU army then ends up with one of the oddest things, because you have then like, there is like this dual, like it can't exist in the same way. So you would have like, what about if like one country just like has a problem, like Poland's like, fuck it, I'm gonna go to war with the EU army. Like, how does that fucking look?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, that would be a conflict of interest.
yeah, it's incredibly stupid. And plus, you'd have to then, I mean, like the EU then too would have to have then. I mean, they would have their own defense budget as well. But then where that money comes from then also is like
Mitgliederbeiträge.
Yeah.
Member fees.
Yeah, I mean, because like the EU doesn't. I mean, it's not like taxation would be in like a normal country. I mean, that money comes from where it already does, but you'd have to then, you know, how much money gets invested into fucking defense funds for the European Union.
You can take the millions of euros that you take from Poland for putting Polish law above European law.
Yeah.
Because they signed a thingy. They signed a contract that they wouldn't do that. And now they said, the Supreme Court said, no, Polish law has a primer to to European law.
But you see, same stupid problem. Europe is dumb. And I don't really, I don't know. I just feel that then, like, regardless of that, like, there is something then, like, maybe Rob's right. Maybe they would just pick up the NATO banner, just like the US would be like less involved in it, or the US would just be a more equal member on it, or whatever. Or maybe they just maybe it does disappear. I mean, it's like it is. It doesn't need to exist anymore. It's fucking stupid.
Maybe what if war was?
What if China just takes over Europe and we're all using
That's
Huawei's?
another beef right now between the US and.
That's my favorite line from John Lennon's Imagine.
Yeah. Imagine we're all on Huawei.
Imagine China took over.
Oh, yeah. On that note, we will see you guys all next week. But before we go, we have one announcement to make, because this episode is coming out on Monday the 17th. I'm going to try to get it out as fast as I can. If not, then the 18th on Tuesday. We will be having a get together, if you will, a year in review.
Ein kleines Stell dich ein.
Exactly. We at Donau 115. At what time? Does anyone remember?
Don't know. Double 1.
Something
I'm
like
going to
that.
say 8. That sounds like a
Probably.
good time.
Probably
for
come
an
by
event to
earlier.
start.
Yeah.
Doors earlier than that.
Yeah, the 23rd in Donau 115 is at Donaustrasse 115, for those who don't know. We're having a little get-together with ourselves and Spaßbremse, our, and our CIA.
Fun break.
Yeah, fun break. And, our CIA handlers will be there. I got confirmation from Ulf Polshot that he's also coming. And it'll be a fun time.
The U.S. and Russia will also be
U.S.
there
and Russia will be,
about
Blinken, and it'll be mud wrestling of Antony Blinken and Sergei Lavrov. It is 2G plus, if I'm not mistaken. So for those who are completely unaware of what these rules are, it is either you are boosted with no test, or vaxxed plus a test.
Yeah.
Vaxxed recovered plus a
test.
antigen test, at least. And we would love to see you there. Entrance is free. And we hope to be getting back onto more normal content in 2022 now that our dear leader, Kieran, will be hopefully out of quarantine by Thursday.
Like
we broke the legs of the union organizers, so the workforce will be back.
Yeah.
Exactly. And on that note, we will hopefully see you then on
on the note of crushing unions.
Yeah, on the note of crushing unions, we will either see you on the bonus feed for Friday, or we will see you on Sunday, or if you don't like us, then we'll see you on Monday. Take care.
Bye-bye.